is Election Day, and I will cover it extensively throughout the program. But I want to begin on a sad note. Former Vice President Dick Cheney died today. He has been the equal of any public servant in the United States for more than 40 years, one of the great weight-bearing walls of the Republic, and in a variety of posts. The youngest chief of staff in the White House ever for President Gerald Ford, a staunch conservative and leadership member of the House of Representatives, including ranking member on the very important Iran-Contra Committee, backed up by future federal judge Dick Leon. He and his steady leadership helped President Reagan guide through that. When George H.W. Bush became president and he needed a Secretary of Defense, after John Tower withdrew, the senator from Texas, he turned to the congressman from Wyoming, and Dick Cheney became the model of a successful Secretary of Defense, oversaw the planning and execution of the first Gulf War, and then, after H.W. was defeated in 1992, went into the private sector, succeeded magnificently because he's a smart, brilliant man. I'll tell you a little bit about his education adventure in a second, and that's what he called it. After that, of course, George W. Bush asked him to oversee the vice presidential selection process, at the end of which George W. Bush asked Dick Cheney to join him on the ticket because he thought he needed someone with that level of gravitas and seriousness. And the vice president did. And he served loyally and quietly, advocating steadily for his robust foreign policy. After the 9/11 attacks, he was an absolute advocate for striking America's enemies before they could strike us. Not unlike what's happening in Israel now. They have decided in Israel now to take people at their word. And Vice President Cheney was always an advocate for the unitary executive, always an advocate for using American strength for the invasion of Afghanistan, for the invasion of Iraq. He defended it always, had good arguments. In his retirement, he took on the Obama foreign policy, especially the JCPOA, and he was right. Wrote a number of books and quietly supported Republicans, just as he quietly supported George W. Bush throughout his presidency. I had the great honor of getting to know him. I first worked for Mrs. Cheney when she was director of the National Endowment for the Humanities as her general counsel. She's an eminent historian. The Virginia Dynasty is one of those books I'll reread and reread or listen to again because it's such a fabulous book. But she wrote a number of great books. And her book on Madison is really, I think, probably the high watermark for Madison scholarship in the United States. He loved his two daughters and his grandchildren. Both Liz and Mary have been guests on this program. And the vice president was a guest many times. In the White House, he invited me to his office. And I went and recorded an interview there. And then he and Mrs. Cheney hosted the fetching Mrs. Hewitt and I at the vice president's residence, along with the Powerline fellas. We had a great dinner one night up at the Naval Observatory, which is now the vice president's residence. He also came to the studio after his days as vice president were done when he didn't have a heart. He made a joke about it. He'd written the book Heart, and he and Liz came to my California studio carrying the device which kept him alive until a successful heart transplant. And the book Heart was about how American medicine had kept him alive for a very long time. One step ahead of heart disease, always with some innovation, concluding with a heart transplant, which worked for a very long time. And when I returned to run the Nixon Foundation, the vice president was very gracious with his time, helped me get it reordered and stood up, went out to his home in Northern Virginia, had lunch with him. Fabulous guy. One semester I was teaching at Colorado Christian University, and Bill Armstrong, former senator, good friend of Dick Cheney, was leading CCU. And Bill and I invited him to come out to, it's a small college in Lakewood, Colorado. And the vice president always kept that ledger in his head about, okay, who's done well by him and his family and by the Republic, and Bill Armstrong certainly had. So he came out. We had 4,000 people. It was amazing. Modest, humble, no braggadocio, steady, and a 5-star intellect. Like I said, a weight-bearing wall of the Republic. Of course he has critics, anonymous, sometimes non-anonymous. Anyone who's going to live in the public square and do battle on behalf of the Republic for as long as Dick Cheney did, in as many different roles as he did, is going to have a lot of critics. There are going to be a lot of people who want to stand up and say, Dick Cheney this, Dick Cheney that, and they're all wrong. You can't be perfect in your decision-making. Nobody is. But boy, he was loyal. He was very, very loyal. He did have disagreements with President George W. Bush, and they're well known. He did a fabulous interview with me after his memoir came out. It's a great memoir. Good friends with Donald Rumsfeld, as one would expect. The men had worked together since the Nixon administration. Great admirer of Jerry Ford. Great admirer, actually, of every Republican, not so much President Trump. They had profound differences. And the vice president, though, conducted himself in the opposition to some of the initiatives of the Trump first presidency quietly with dignity. He was just a magnificent person. Now, what I like to let people know, he was a wild boy. Born in Nebraska but raised in Casper, Wyoming. He was a lineman after he dropped out of Yale, before getting thrown out of Yale. So he's very smart. Got into Yale and then suggested that he go home. He did. I believe he worked as a lineman for a while. His high school sweetheart, Lynn Cheney, was out there. And I think it was Mrs. Cheney who suggested to him, Dick, you really got to straighten up. And he did. Went to the University of Wyoming and then became a congressional fellow. I'm recalling this from memory, right? So I'm not really sure about this. But I think he became a congressional fellow for Congressman Steiger, Wisconsin. And then decided, I'm not going to be a PhD. I like this congressional business. And went into the Nixon administration with Donald Rumsfeld at the Office of Economic Stabilization. It was the Wage and Price Control Administration, I think, which was a ludicrous idea, but RN wanted to try it. And then when Rumsfeld led the Gerald Ford transition, he brought Dick Cheney along, and then former President Ford asked Donald Rumsfeld, would you go over to defense? He said, sure, but who's going to run the White House? And they said, well, Dick Cheney can run the White House. 34 years old. Ran the White House staff. Not in a different way, very, very similar way to Susie Wiles, who is running the White House now for Donald Trump. And you never see her. She's not interested in making news. She is interested in making the West Wing run. Vice President Cheney was big on process, big on preparing for a crisis. And he'd like to remind everyone, after 9/11, the homeland was not attacked again. To his critics, especially those following the invasion of Iraq and no weapons of mass destruction, he would routinely point out, we took up as our duty, and W and he said it many, many times, the homeland will not be attacked again, and we have not been since the efforts undertaken by President Bush and Vice President Cheney. Strong believer in the executive branch. Strong believer in Article 2. And with the intellect to back up any argument. Never touched electronics. Never, ever touched it. And I got the great, great, great compliment. Every interviewer loves this compliment. That's a great question. I've never been asked that before. And I asked him, the question was, if you had to give up fly fishing or pheasant shooting, which would you keep and which would you let go? And he said, oh, that's a great question. I have never been asked that question. And he thought about it for a long time. I'd gone to the White House, and a friend of mine had made him some flies. And he took the box later at dinner that night. He said, I open boxes like that with trepidation because some people are not so good. But it's a good box, English box, and they were great flies. But after a while, he said, but if I had to do it, I'd give up fly fishing, but I love them both. Great pheasant hunter. But more importantly, a great patriot, great statesman, a genuine, honest-to-goodness statesman. who loved his wife, his children, his grandchildren very, very much. A model of a man. And if he had his wild years, I think I heard John Podhoretz say today, don't worry if your teenagers run a little bit wild. So was Dick Cheney, and that turned out very, very well for the country, for his wife, and for his family. He will be greatly missed. On Election Day, no one better to speak with than one of the fellas from the Ruthless podcast, to which you should subscribe and like if you wish to opine about what they have to say. I listened to half of today's podcast before I had to go to work for Fox this morning. And so I don't know if you updated this, John Ashbrook, and welcome. Always good to see you. But I wanted to get the latest update on the Ruthless Parlay, because every week the fellas bet on the Colts, who are 7-2, and the Panthers are doing pretty well at 5-4. Vikings are okay at 4. But how are the Bengals doing, John?
The Bengals, as you know, Hugh, the Bengals are struggling.
Really, I don't. It's the news. I've been blacked out. I don't know how the Bengals are doing.
Yeah, this has been a very difficult season for our defense. They just haven't been up to snuff. Our offense is terrific, but the D leaves something to be desired. So hopefully we can rebuild in the offseason, use free agency to our advantage.
So the Browns gave you Joe Flacco. We gave you Joe Flacco.
Joe Flacco
sacrificed.
He is so good. I mean, he stepped right in, and that guy had a shoulder problem last Sunday, and he played right through it, 470 yards. That was a huge, huge gift. And I don't know if you saw what Mike Tomlin, the Steelers coach, said about the deal between the Browns and the Bengals. He was not happy.
He was upset. He was not. But so how many times has the parlay hit this year?
It has hit one time. It has hit one time.
And
maybe we'll get it again.
Are they the weak sister of this parlay?
Well, this year they definitely are. In years past, the Bengals have been the strong suit, but every team rises and falls, as a Cleveland Browns fan well knows.
No, I don't actually know anything about rising, so I just I don't know anything about rising. All right, let's get to elections, John. My name was invoked today because I spoke up for the federal employees of Virginia, the 150,000, give or take 10,000. Of the federal employees. I said, I think they're smart. They know the Democrats shut down the government, but you four fellas, you don't think they're smart. You think they're going to vote for the Democrat.
I do think they're smart, and I do think that they are very frustrated with the situation because they're going to work every day in a lot of cases, and they're not sure they're going to get paid for what they've done. And they have families just like everybody else. I do think they're smart. However, the majority of them are Democrats. And Democrats understand that better than anybody else. And I have believed for about 3 weeks that Democrats have extended this shutdown past Election Day so that they could take the fury from those federal employees and apply it to their turnout mechanism. It all started with the No Kings movement on October 18th. I'm a political consultant. No Kings, to most people, probably looked like a bunch of libs holding signs. To me, it looked like a Democrat GOTV effort to make sure that all of their federal employees who are part of the union and believe in what Democrats want were signed up to vote and ready to pull the lever for Dems.
Now, earlier today, Jason Miyares, our Attorney General, since we're both Virginians, put out a X post that it's okay to split your ballot, and he was talking with a voter who had voted for Spanberger. It was really so dull. It's going to be such a dull 4 years in Virginia. And for Jason Miyares. And it's been called elsewhere a referendum on decency by the Attorney General Miyares, since Jay Jones is a nut. Do you think Miyares pulls this out?
I think he's got a really good shot of pulling it out, Hugh. And I've seen so many different numbers that people have thrown out. And, there's an expectation that he will get some of the Spanberger crossover vote, and there's an expectation that he will benefit from some undervote from Democrats who don't like what Jay Jones said but aren't going to pull the lever for Republicans. The reason why Democrats worked so hard through this shutdown to build up partisanship is so that they could convince regular old Democrats to overlook everything that Jay Jones said and only think in partisan terms and not in terms of who's the best person to serve in this job. Jason Miyares is an incredible AG. He's very serious about safety. He's very serious about prosecution. He's everything that you want in an AG, particularly at a moment in our time where safety, crime, all of those things seem to be such huge issues. Jay Jones subscribes to this George Soros theory of decarceration. Let him out and then let the people have to deal with the consequences. And I sincerely, sincerely hope that Jason Miyares can pull it out. It's going to be close, and we'll find out tonight.
To our Virginia audience, go vote. Could be very close,
Exactly.
both ends. And not impossible for Winsome Earl Sears to win John Reed to read. Let me go up now to New Jersey and New York. I was just on with John Roberts. I said, I feel pretty good about New Jersey. I shouldn't. It's a blue state. He lost 4 years ago when Biden was in the White House, came close, and Trump increased. But I still feel good because Jack Ciattarelli is a great candidate who got some attention this time. What do the fellas believe?
He is a great candidate, and he's run an outstanding race, and he did come up short last time. And part of the reason for that is he was running against an incumbent governor, and incumbent governors are very, very hard to beat. Now he's running against Mikey Sherrill, who is a terrible candidate. I mean, she's been in Washington. She really is not. She's not even as good of a candidate as Abigail Spanberger in Virginia. She's made a lot of mistakes. And that race is close, much, much closer than Democrats would care to admit. But if you watch the way that Mikey Sherrill has handled herself over the closing weeks, you know that Democrats acknowledge how close this race is. Ciattarelli's pollster is a buddy of mine. We've worked together on a bunch of races, and I've relied on his numbers many, many times, and his numbers are good. And he has told me that this race is much closer than the public polls would lead you to believe, that the way their modeling looks, that the low propensity voters seem to be coming out at a higher rate than they have in the past. And if their election day numbers hit their targets, then they can win. That's a big if, as we all know. Election day targets.
Is it property taxes? I think it's property taxes, but does your buddy confirm it's property taxes, followed by property taxes, followed by property taxes?
Property taxes are a huge issue. They're a huge issue. And I think that the other thing, Hugh, that you can't discount is voters' confidence in somebody's leadership ability. You know, Jack Ciattarelli has spent the last 4 years building relationships with people and demonstrating that he is someone they should have confidence in to lead the state, whether you're Democrat or you're Republican. Remember, New Jersey is a state that has 850,000 more registered Democrats than Republicans. And also, New Jersey's not that big a state. A lot of people around the country think, oh, everybody's from Jersey. It's so populous. It's not that big a state. 850,000 more Democrats than Republicans. The fact that he's close is a testament to his style, a testament to the hard work of his campaign. And I think it also says something about the job that President Trump is doing, where there's a national environment that would have the unthinkable even be possible. And under no circumstances, when a Republican is in office, should any Republican be even in the conversation in a state as blue as New Jersey in the off-year election. And I just think that Trump's doing a lot of good, and I think that Ciattarelli is capitalizing on that, but also building off of all of these relationships he's spent 4 years forging on the ones. And
all right, look, quick exit, John. I've been begging Republicans in New York to vote for Cuomo. Do you think Donald Trump pushed enough Republicans into the Cuomo line to get him over the top?
You know, I'd like to think that was the case, but man, these numbers for Mamdani are stunning and they're terrifying, and I know we're going to have a lot more to talk about on that in weeks to come.
John Ashbrook from The Ruthless Podcast. Follow John Ashbrook at John Ashbrook on X and The Ruthless Podcast at Ruthless Podcast on X. And of course, subscribe and like that wonderful podcast. I'm Hugh Hewitt. You know that music means Dwayne's coming in because it's the intro to Dwayne's World. He's here to talk about myphdweightloss.com. 864
644
1900. That's
864
644
1900.
So, Dwayne, it's we're into official Thanksgiving season when people tend to balloon between now. They can prevent that by going on the program right now, right? They could actually lose weight by the end of the year.
Absolutely. And again, Thanksgiving doesn't have to necessarily be the ultimate diet killer. I mean, it can be a protein-rich environment, and you can actually pick and choose and get your way through Thanksgiving and still enjoy it.
And use myphdweightloss.com instead of the fat shot. 864
644
1900. That's
864
644
1900.
or go to myphdweightloss.com. Now, Generalissimo, you also told us last week in preparation for Halloween that you had your besthotgrill.com out and you were making hot dogs wrapped in bacon.
Yes.
On the Best Hot Grill. How did that go?
Oh, they were really good. They were really good. I made a dozen of them, and they were gone in about 15 minutes.
Now, do they come with a bun, or is that just something you eat protein style, or as they say, monster style over at In-N-Out
I ate
Burger?
it protein style. Those who are skinny as a rail around my house didn't seem to matter too much to them. But if you do it without the bun, you can still enjoy because it's really tasty on a grill.
And how long does it take on the Solaire infrared grill to prepare a bacon-wrapped hot dog?
5-6 minutes.
That's pretty good.
Not
That's
bad at
very
all.
good.
Not bad
Head
at all.
over, and by the way, did you get your best hot gas logs for your fireplace yet?
I have not done that yet. I still need to measure the back of my firebox.
Well, how hard is that? You want me to come over and do it?
Yeah, because I want to see you stoop over and bend over and do that. That would
Right
be
now,
actually
I can't do
riotously
that.
funny. Yes.
I actually can't move. But get the popular fireballs when you go for it. And they're all there at besthotgrill.com. They are the Rasmussen popular fireballs, one and only fireballs, and they make your fireplace look lovely. Now, let me save you some money. All right, consumercellular.com is a great sponsor of the show. You go to consumercellular.com/Hugh. consumercellular.com/Hugh, or you call them at 800-411-4454, 800-411-4454. Takes about 20 minutes to switch from the cell phone phone company that is sucking the life out of your bank account because you signed up for some ridiculous grandfathered plan because you thought you wanted to be grandfathered and it turned into a trap, and you're buying a lot of data you don't know. Before you call them at 1-800-411-4454, or before you go to consumercellular.com/Hugh, get your phone bill out so you can talk to the person who you will be talking with, a live person after one button, a U.S.-based customer service representative, because it matters a great deal to consumercellular.com that you get great customer service. Remember my code, Hugh25. It's worth an extra $5 off of each of your first 5 months as a Consumer Cellular customer. 1-800-411-4454. Keep your phone, keep your number, keep your data. Just save a lot of money. If you're over 50, 2 lines of unlimited data for $60 a month. You can get that at 1-800-411-4454 or at consumercellular.com. Now I got to take my relief factor. And why? Because I can't move. I think I'm on Jesse Waters tonight, and I normally love doing Jesse's show, but the idea of getting up and down the studio steps is going to be something. But that's okay. I'll make it through because I'll just double down on relief factor today. And there, I just took it. Icarian, curcumin, resveratrol, and omega. Those 4 natural supplements help your body's anti-inflammatory system. I can't take NSAIDs. I've been able to take NSAIDs for years and years and years. The particular medical problem. Can't take it. And so, always been interested, and for 12 years have relied upon Relief Factor. And you can as well. When you do what I did, which is carry around Tree Stump Teddy, the 3-year-old who's made out of granite. I mean, he's just an absolute stone of a boy and just a lovely lad. But he gave out at the far point of Halloween, like the farthest point. And that meant sack of potatoing him home and getting him up the steps and getting him into bed, sticky fingers and all, Tootsie Roll, fell asleep with a Tootsie Roll in his mouth. Way to go. That's how 3-year-olds ought to do Halloween. But Grandpa's back is paying the price. And so I'm doubling down on Relief Factor and trying not to grimace on air here or on Fox News on Jesse Waters tonight. Go to Relief Factor at 1-800, the number 4, and the word relief. Get the $19.95 starter pack that's less than $1 a day. 3-week supply, 1-800, the number 4, relief, or find that starter pack at their website, relieffactor.com, relieffactor.com. Senator Eric Schmidt represents the great state of Missouri. I'm a little reluctant to talk to you, Senator, because, we might be being recorded by the FBI. I've never really had a suspected something or other on the air before, and I'm just a little reluctant since you became a target in the Arctic frost investigation So just to the FBI, if you're listening, I got nothing to do with it.
China's probably been listening in for a long time, Hugh. So, who knows?
That's a given. Senator, I want a select committee to go deep into this. I want our best lawyers on it, and I want subpoena power, and I think it's an outrage. What's the discussion or the temperature level inside the caucus about Arctic frost?
Yeah, I mean, it's hot and heavy. We met the Judiciary Committee along with Senator Johnson, Ron Johnson, who's on that select committee for permanent investigations. We kind of met to get briefed on the new revelations that came out last week about just sort of the extent of the dragnet, the 400 plus people and individuals caught up, including the Republican AG Association when I was chairman, Charlie Kirk's organization. So beyond just the 8 senators, this was cast far and wide by Jack Smith. And so, yes, I think that we should do that. I do think we want to have people who are skilled in asking questions and getting to the bottom of the truth. One caveat, I do think, two, let me say that. Two, not only should we do the Arctic frost, I think we should be looking at the coordination that took place between these different state prosecutors. So you have in Atlanta, the number 2 person meeting with the White House counsel. Alvin Bragg gets the number 3 person from DOJ to come to his office, all around the same time Jack Smith begins his witch hunt. So there had to have been coordination. We'll find out. But also, we want to make sure we get as much information first before we go into that, because that grand jury testimony is sealed, and we want to get as much as we can. Final point is all of this is because whistleblowers have come forward, Hugh. Like, if Trump doesn't win, all of this stuff is still buried and nobody would know anything about it. It's really disturbing on a bunch of levels.
You know, interesting about the grand jury, I don't know if you've read The Nixon Conspiracy by Jeff Shepard, Senator, but it went back to how Judge Sirica allowed the Watergate grand jury to get their information to the House Judiciary Committee that voted the impeachment articles against Richard Nixon. It broke every rule on the book, and they did it secretly, but it's finally been revealed. It's called the Roadmap. And I don't know that you can do that. You might have to start over. But I want you to get started because do you think the American people have any idea yet? We've been a shutdown. We got elections. The Vice President Cheney died today. It's hard to keep the attention span of the American people, but 400 targets, that's a witch hunt.
It is. I said this at the press conference last week. I just think in this 24-hour news cycle, this stuff can get lost. It's hard to overstate how big this was. I mean, this does make Watergate seem like some sort of third-rate burglary, and it's 100 times worse. But that's why we have to have the focus for literally weeks, if not months-long hearings on this to make sure the American people are given all of the relevant information, because the truth is the psychology behind this was pathological. 3 days after Trump announces, they said, okay, this guy's going after, he's trying to run again. We're going to go get him. And it's just part and parcel of this. They felt so justified in it, and they were willing to bulldoze any norm, any law, any rule to get their man. This kind of show me the man, I'll show you the crime. But it was more than just the man, as it turns out. It was against a movement. And anybody that had a red jersey on wasn't safe from this abuse either.
Well, this is why I want a select committee, because select committees can break through the media noise if they're funny and they're good. That's why I just want lawyers, and I want new staff and subpoena power so you can, they'll run 24/7 Jack Smith in front of you. They'll run 24/7 Comey and Brennan. But if we screw up the questioning, by we, I mean Republicans, I'm a Republican, you'll lose the audience immediately, right? That's what you expect.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it has to be done the right way, because this is too important to not get right. Because, again, you just can't ever let this happen again. And one of the things I have to correct the sort of legacy media here in Washington that's around every corner as you walk from the Russell office building to the Capitol. They talk about the president going after his political enemies. And I try to make pretty clear, look, there's a big difference between the weaponization that we saw over the last 4 years under the Biden administration, which was unprecedented, and then holding those people accountable. That is not the same thing. Right? If you wanted to get the weaponization, President Trump would have done that in his first term against Hillary Clinton, right? But that didn't happen. So now you have to make sure that the people that went out and did this who weaponized our Justice Department in ways we've never seen before are held accountable.
I got another suggestion for you, Senator. The FBI
Okay.
bureau
Let me make a
building
note.
is going to come down. The Hoover building's got to come down. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
They're thinking about moving the bureau over to the Reagan building, which makes no sense at all. It's not secure. It wasn't built to be a SCIF, et cetera. Isn't it a good time to send the FBI to West Virginia? Because they have just become too politicized. I mean, you might have the director and the deputy director at Main Justice over at my old fifth floor area, but do you want to get the Bureau out of the Beltway? I think it's bad for the Bureau.
Yeah, no, it's interesting you brought this up because in the confirmation process, Pam Bondi, I know Pam very well from our state AG days, and then Kash Patel, I know, and one of the conversations I had with both of them in their confirmation hearings and process beforehand was, especially Kash, who said he wants to get a lot of agents out of D.C. and into the interior of the United States. And so St. Louis now, my hometown, is getting the largest infusion of permanent FBI agents per capita anywhere in the country.
Oh, that's good.
That is a model. You need to get these people out of D.C. and get people who can actually take on violent crime in our urban areas. And that's the appropriate role. Imagine all the time wasted on the Hunter Biden laptop pre-bunking and all these witch hunts. If you could have had that kind of manpower in those hours dedicated to going after drug trafficking and violent criminals, we'd be a much different country right now. And I think that's what we got to get back to.
And we got to get Bureau people out of the Beltway. It infects them with an ambition which is overarching. Send them to West Virginia, send them to Ohio, send them somewhere, but get them out of the Beltway, not to the Reagan building. It's the nicest building in Pennsylvania Avenue. I've bent your ear enough, Senator Schmidt. I lobby all the senators when they come on for my pet projects.
I love it.
Yeah, can we get an extra draft choice for the Browns? Can you legislate that too? Compensatory.
Yeah, talk to your Ohio senators about that. All right, I'm not getting in the middle of that.
Well, they don't
Cincinnati
have enough seniority. Bernie does not have any seniority. Good to see you, Senator Eric Schmidt. We need guys with juice to get the Browns stood up. Thank you so much, Senator Eric Schmidt. I'm trying to find the 10-year Treasury so I can talk to you about andrewandtodd.com, and there it is. It's at 4.086 because the stock market's getting myrtleized today. All of a sudden, people woke up and they took profits. The only stock I own, Palantir, is getting hammered today. It was down about 8%, I think, at one point. Lost $20 a share. It's now starting. The sharks are coming in and buying now. I never sell, right? I don't sell on news. I don't buy on news. I have Palantir because I believe in the future, and I think they own the future. And I think their software is spreading out like lily pads doubling in a pond. The old story is, when a lily pod doubles every day and you start with one lily pod and it takes the pond 30 days to become half full with lily pods, how many days will it take for the pond to be completely covered by lily pods? And the answer is 1 day. And I think Palantir is doing that because it's just growing. So I'm not upset that it's getting hammered. It just blew past every expectation yesterday. Had an amazing quarter, and of course it's down 8% today. But I want to know the 10-year Treasury because andrewandtodd.com, 888-1172, are great clients of the show, wonderful sponsors of the show. And I got to send Andrew this. It'll drive him nuts. Risky loan from housing bust era is making a comeback. Buyers embrace adjustable rate mortgages, chancing higher payments later for lower ones now. All right. The debate about adjustable rate mortgages is as old as this show, which is 25 years old. Andrew and Todd have been sponsors for about half that time. And they are a bank, Union Mortgage, and they lend you the money. And they lend you the money because they underwrite the loan. And they know what you should do and what you shouldn't do, and they give great advice. 10-year Treasuries at 4.086. That probably means a 6% loan, maybe the high fives. Depends on your credit, where you are, how much you're putting down. Depends on a lot of different things. But you get the best answers from andrewandtodd.com, 888-1172. So I see this Wall Street Journal story, risky loan from housing bust era is making a comeback. That will wrongly scare people into not evaluating whether they ought to have an adjustable rate mortgage. I don't know that you should get an ARM. I don't give financial advice. I'm not telling you to buy Palantir stock. I'm not telling you to get an adjustable rate mortgage. I'm telling you, don't believe headlines like this. Talk to professionals like Andrew Del Rey and Todd Avakian who have been in this business forever and find out from them. Because on a day like that today, when the markets get ravaged, you may have lost some money on paper, but it's going to come back. You don't worry about that. What you worry about is, do you have the right amount of money to make the payment? How's your credit report? Where's the house? And who's making the loan? You want Union Mortgage to make the loan. You want andrewandtodd.com to process it. Go to their website or call them at 888-888-1172. You'll love them. Thousands of my listeners have been well served by andrewandtodd.com. You be the next one. It's election day, and that means election night, and that means Brett Baer will be in the anchor's chair at Fox News tonight, beginning, I believe, at 9 o'clock. Brett, what's the over-under on your wrapping up tonight, do you think?
Well, we hope it does, but, New Jersey could go late. I think New York probably is going to be callable, and probably Virginia, if I had to guess. New York ends at 9 p.m. Virginia's at 7. So we should have some guidance by 5 p.m. in what it's a sort of an exit poll, but it's our Fox News data analysis. We should have a good sense of where things are heading and what time we should be able to call things. We get that briefing in about an hour. And just looking at it going in, I think New Jersey is potentially the latest.
That's what I think you'll be able to call Prop 50 in California at 11 o'clock Eastern, because the polls will close at 8. And that machine is a machine, and it's Gavin's machine, and it's going to pass. And then I hope Indiana follows through and redistricts, but that's the Republican in me. Let me ask if you read any significance into Zoran Mamdani on Morning Joe this morning. He's seated next to Al Sharpton. He's got Jonathan Lemire there, Willie Geist. He got, of course, Mika and Joe. And here's Zoran talking about BDS, which is boycott, divest, and I can't remember what the S stands for, but it's nothing good towards Israel. Cut number 4.
To go back to Joe's previous question, I've talked to Jewish New Yorkers who like your message of affordability. They think it's the right message, but then they go back and they say, well, he supports BDS. He won't condemn the language of globalize the intifada. He seemed to play both sides after October 7th in his initial statement. They're deeply worried that you have some animosity for Jewish people and for the state of Israel. How do you respond to that?
Look, I think critiques of the state of Israel are critiques of a government, as opposed to critiques of a people and of a faith. And my job is to represent every single New Yorker, and I will do so no matter their thoughts and opinions on Israel and Palestine, of which millions of New Yorkers have very strong views, and I'm one of them.
Would BDS be the policy of your administration as mayor?
I've said that I would support and have supported nonviolent movements to bring about compliance with international law. And where this mayor has violated and looked to violate that kind of law, I would bring us back into compliance.
So yes.
No, I'm talking about compliance.
Okay.
Right? And I've said that I support BDS because this is a movement that is looking
All right,
for...
So it's sanctions. Boycott, divest, and sanction Israel. Doing that on election morning, Brett? What do you read into that?
Well, I think it's kind of bold. I don't think that there's a thought that he needs to do anything different than he's been doing when it comes to the Jewish vote. And there are some percentage of Jewish voters that are still voting for Mamdani, despite some of the things he said. And you've seen the president take to Truth Social and elsewhere saying that's a wasted vote and all of the things that he said about Mamdani. I think it's a fascinating study in a campaign that is – he's a very good campaigner. He is a very good retail politician. He does this video where they reveal that he's in the nosebleed seats at the Garden for the Knicks game, and he tweets out that he's there, and then he shows Cuomo on the court side saying courtside equals corruption. I mean, he's very populist in his pitch, and the question is whether New York is going to buy all of that.
Well, he began backpedaling in the same sit-down this morning, cut number 5.
Question affordability in this city, living here is top of everyone's mind. It has gotten obscenely expensive to live here, to do anything here. So you're proposing free grocery stores, free buses, $30 minimum wage, all of which sounds incredible.
Cheaper groceries, not free groceries.
Excuse me, cheaper groceries.
So you hear that, Brett? Cheaper groceries, not free groceries. So we're backpedaling. We're making sure we're not really. I wonder if it's cheaper buses, not free buses. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, listen, that is a walk back because he clearly campaigned on the free groceries and the free buses. And, as he's getting closer to reality of maybe winning Gracie Mansion and the mayor's office, maybe there's a reality that he's going to have to dial back some of these promises.
Meanwhile, Andrew Cuomo shows up on the couch on Fox and Friends. Knocked me over with a feather. What'd you think when you saw that?
Well, he's been on my show. He's been on Martha's show. He's been all over Fox airwaves, and he made his final pitch on Fox and Friends this morning, and they gave him a ton of time. Listen, he was a horrible candidate at the beginning. I don't know why, but he just didn't look like he had the fire in the belly. He's in recent weeks kind of stepped it up in his campaigning, but he lost the Democratic primary, and now he's trying to race to the finish line. I don't know if it's enough at the finish line.
Now, Curtis is melting, and he's melting rather quick, and he's mad, and it comes across on TV. Have you talked to Republicans in New York who've decided, I don't like Andrew Cuomo, but I like the city more than I dislike Andrew Cuomo?
Yeah, I've heard that anecdotally, and obviously the president's push moves, a little bit, and obviously we've had all of the candidates on. I had Curtis on last week while I was in Dallas, and just to make sure that we touched all the bases. I think there are some people that say if he gets 12, 15%, it's much like, not to refer to a really good book, when Teddy Roosevelt and the Bull Moose Party takes 20% of the vote and Woodrow Wilson becomes president.
Now, speaking of Teddy Roosevelt, the least in temperament, but perhaps the most like him in terms of robust national security policy is the now late Dick Cheney. I knew the vice president pretty well for a journalist. I'm sure you did as well. You were at the Pentagon through the years of fire. What do you think? What are your thoughts on the vice president's passing today?
Well, I covered the White House during the second term of the Bush administration, and I traveled the world with Vice President Cheney on Air Force Two. I think I define his vice president as really consequential, his vice presidency, because it was the most powerful. He expanded the role. He was always fighting for executive power and executive action, which is very similar to Teddy Roosevelt in that way. And then he was changed after 9/11 in that everything he saw was through the prism of 9/11 and protecting the country, and that's how he approached things.
Now, to rescue the American spirit begins with Teddy Roosevelt's dash to try and get back to Buffalo, where McKinley, who wasn't supposed to die, is dying. And it's a fabulous anecdote recitation. Dick Cheney was always one heartbeat away, but he was also one good heart away from going a long distance. I thought his valiant effort to stave off heart disease it was a book. He wrote the book Heart with Liz Cheney. Do you think he had any premonitions at all about becoming president and being ready to be president that would have held him back at all from running?
Yeah, that's a great question. I know that his health was a concern, but every time he got a new procedure, they always innovated and something new was happening. And originally his doctor said 10 years max when he got a transplant, and he well surpassed that. So I don't think that was a hindrance. I do think that his popularity obviously took a hit after the Iraq War and some of the things that were controversial, Abu Ghraib and how the enhanced interrogation techniques. I think that, at that point it was over, but he was a thought to be a candidate early on, but chose not to be.
Now, I want to close by talking about the vice president's intellect. In a town full of egos, not always matched by their intellects. Dick Cheney had an incredible mind, in my view. You think he's the equal of anyone when it comes to just pure brain power? Because I thought he was pretty big in that department.
Yeah, he was. He thought a lot. He read a lot. It was interesting because I covered the Pentagon under Defense Secretary Rumsfeld, and they had a long relationship back to when Rumsfeld was a congressman from Illinois, and then he brought him on staff, and then he got him to the White House. Cheney becomes White House Chief of Staff to Ford. Rumsfeld works in that White House as well. I think that he did have this intellect and a political sense about things to the point where Bush found him crucial in that vice presidential hunt.
Yeah, I just think it's one of the covered stories is smart people in D.C., and Dick Cheney's one of them. And, Brett, we will be watching tonight starting at 9 p.m. until who knows what time. It might be close to New Jersey. Gosh, I hope that goes towards Jack Chitterelli. Thank you for spending some time with me. You get warming up in the bullpen, ready to come in. Brett Baer from Fox News. Don't go anywhere, America. I'm going to continue covering election night, bring you up to date on what we know about turnout, which is pretty robust in the city of New York, according to early reports. Maybe people are getting off the couch and voting to save their city. I sure hope so. Brett was just on. I was on Brett Baer's show last night on Special Report, and we closed out the segment. It was about elections, and then Brett threw me that sinking curve on the tariff argument today before the Supreme Court. Luckily, I've talked about it before. Here's my response last night, cut number 3.
I want to talk about something else that's a big deal. New York Times, Hugh, Supreme Court confronts Trump and his tariffs and the test of presidential power. Wednesday, the justices will consider for the first time whether to say no to Mr. Trump in a lasting way. It issues the legality of his signature economic policy, the use of emergency powers to impose sweeping tariffs on nearly every U.S. trading partner. Here is the president on 60 Minutes on that.
What happens to your economic plan if the Supreme Court invalidates your tariffs?
I think our country will be immeasurably hurt. I think our economy will go to hell. Look, because of tariffs, we have the highest stock market we've ever had. I think it's the most important subject discussed by the Supreme Court in 100 years.
Everyone, Hugh, is gaming out the elections tomorrow, but how do you game out or see the court heading into this tariff hearing in this case?
It's so unbelievably complicated, Brett. It is the non-delegation doctrine. I don't want to put the audience to sleep. It's been dead for a century. Do the justices resurrect it in order to restrain President Trump? I think he's overstating the consequences of that. My prediction, and it's as good as any other prediction, is the Chief Justice writes it. It'll somehow keep some of the tariff power alive, but what he's done has gone far beyond any previous precedent for the use of presidential authority with tariffs. And I have to think that the center of the court, Justice Barrett, the Chief Justice, Justice Kavanaugh, are going to want to rein him back in a little bit and perhaps put up some guardrails while allowing the national security tariffs against China to remain in place. Okay. Now, Mary Catherine Ham was laughing. And the reason she was laughing is because they cut away from Britt, and I couldn't tell if Britt Hume was laughing too. Nobody wants that question. I must have made Brett mad somehow, because nobody really wants to answer that question, because it's a Supreme Court question of incredible complexity, and nobody knows. I would have gone further, but at the risk of boring the audience, I didn't say. I expect a remand to the court below to receive additional evidence on the national security implications of each and every one of the tariffs that the president has imposed. So a very long unwind of some of the more far-fetched tariffs while keeping the China tariffs and the tariffs with Mexico. There's a good argument for tariffs on Mexico. There's a good argument on tariffs with anybody who's been messing with us on national security issues. It's a weapon of national security. It's not supposed to be a fundraising tool unless so ordered by the Congress. That's the explicit Constitution. But I don't think the court wants a direct confrontation with President Trump. So look for a remand with instructions to unwind that which is not defensible and back to the court in 3 or 4 years. Prudential. Very, very prudential. Also want to go to the opposite of prudential. Eric Holder talking about, I'm against getting rid of the filibuster. But when I hear Eric Holder on the Midas Touch podcast, I begin to think maybe not. Cut number 10.
I think, the reality is, and it pains me to say this, I think the Supreme Court is a broken institution. And it's something that has to be, I think, a part of the national conversation in 26 and in 28. what are we going to do about the Supreme Court? And I think that we have to think about, again, talking about the acquisition and the use of power. If there is a Democratic trifecta in 2028, and I think the possibility of that is pretty good, Supreme Court reform is something that has to be considered.
All right. So I believe, one, it's unconstitutional to raise the court above 10. When the court was last changed down to 9, it happened concurrently with the ratification of the 14th Amendment. And I think the due process of law requires the stability of the highest court in the land, and that you might be able to expand it to 10, but it's never been bigger than 10. And so if you use history and logic, it shouldn't be able to expand. But I think the blowback would be extraordinary. But there you've got Eric Holder speaking on behalf of the left-wing lunacy. As soon as they get power back, they want to pack the court. So why should the Republicans wait? Because it's not good to pack the court, because we believe in the Constitution and the rule of law. But when that sort of stuff happens, and he says that right now, it helps President Trump make his argument for blowing up the filibuster, because you know the Democrats will if they can get away with it. But I think the blowback would be so intense. Keep that clip, Dwayne. Keep that clip. I want to remind people about what Eric Holder said, speaking for the left wing of the Democratic Party. Chuck Schumer, by the way, was very tempered today in his comments. Cut number 11.
It's been clear. When we fight for democracy, when we protect democracy, we got to fight fire with fire. We're not going to stand idly by, as Maya said. We're not going to let them revert to Jim Crow. And if you don't think they want to revert to Jim Crow, just look what they did in the SAVE Act.
It's so absurd. They want to revert to Jim Crow. I'm assuming that most people in this audience know Jim Crow was de jure segregation, by law, segregation in the Old South and parts of the border states. That is ridiculous. It's absurd. It's also unconstitutional and has been since 1954. And so the idea that the Republicans want to revert to segregation, when the segregationists are in the Democratic Party, the ones who are old enough, when Robert Byrd was a KKK member, the segregationists were in the Democratic Party. They led the fight against the Civil Rights Act of 1964. It's stupid. It's extreme. Chuck Schumer has lost it. Really has lost it. I don't know how anyone votes for a Democrat today. One of our sponsors is forfreemarkets.org. FOR, freemarkets.org. Forfreemarkets.org. Why do we need forfreemarkets.org? Because Americans for Free Markets, that's the group that stood up the website forfreemarkets.org, believes in a neutral banking system, one closed to criminal and open to everybody else, no matter what your political views are. We want to legislate the end permanently of debanking by regulatory pressure. We had conservatives thrown out of their financial institutions throughout the Biden years. We had conservatives thrown out of financial institutions during the Obama years. It was a tactic of the left that's got to be denied them when they come back. They want to make it impossible for groups like NRA and National Right to Life to have bank accounts, to raise money, to do wire transfers. All legal, all absolutely legal, but they want to shut down the banking system for conservatives. President Trump signed an executive order stopping it, but we got to make sure it stays stopped. Visit forfreemarkets.org. Time for my second relief factor of the day, because as I told you, Tree Stump Teddy and I did trick-or-treating, and I am paying the price big time, moving very, very slowly with back spasms, because I ought not to be slow and throwing a 3-year-old over my shoulder like a sack of potatoes and carrying him home and paying the price. But relief factor is coming to my aid. I'm taking 2 a day, and I did in the first hour. And there in the second hour. Why do I do that? Because I got to get back in fighting shape. Did my 2 miles today to get to Mass during the Octave of All Souls, but it was slow. I want to get faster. Get your relief factor. 1-800 the number 4 and the word relief. Get the starter pack, $19.95 for 3 weeks. You take 3 packs a day for the first week, 2 packs a day for the second, and then 1 a day forever, unless you have incidents like I do. $19.95, less than $1 a day, or go to their website, relieffactor.com, relieffactor.com. Good press conference by Carolyn Leavitt at the White House today, the briefing, and she laid it out about the shutdown, which is now the longest shutdown in American history. Cut number 16.
The Democrats have completely lost the plot. They are endangering the safety, prosperity, and livelihoods of millions of Americans. It's well past time Democrats do what they did 13 times under Joe Biden and pass the clean funding bill extension. All we need are 5 Democrat senators to put country over party and vote to end this reckless shutdown.
I think it's going to end after the elections because it's a turnout device. I don't think it's really that powerful of a turnout device. It's very, very reckless by the Democrats. It went from being a slogan, the Schumer shutdown, to being a brand. It's now a tattoo on the poor old guy. Now, I say poor old guy because he's losing it. Can I play that Schumer clip again, cut number 11?
It's been clear. When we fight for democracy, when we protect democracy, we got to fight fire with fire. We're not going to stand idly by, as Maya said. We're not going to let them revert to Jim Crow. And if you don't think they want to revert to Jim Crow, just look what they did.
I stopped listening. It's such an absurd and stupid thing. If you don't think they want to revert to Jim Crow. Now, let's get down to brass tacks about safety in America. The shutdown. He's doing this. He's talking about Jim Crow when the government shut down. Air Traffic Controller Association President Nick Daniel went on Fox with Martha McCollum today, cut number 12.
No, these American patriots, they are the unsung heroes that Secretary Duffy speaks about so often. They are the ones that have been thrust into the spotlight, into center focus of a shutdown. And air traffic controllers, we don't start shutdowns. We're not responsible for ending shutdowns. But who does? It's Congress. And that's why we're saying end the shutdown immediately. It's not like we're sitting here talking about an aviation issue. We're talking, I understand the fears, the frustrations of the American people. We want to do an amazing job on their behalf, and we are. We're showing up to work every day the best way that we can to get through this crisis, but this isn't something that we asked for. We didn't want to put ourselves in the middle of it, yet here we are, the rope in the tug-of-war game that we didn't ask for at all, and we should not be used as political pawns in any way, shape, or form for these.
It's dangerous. Secretary of Transportation Sean Duffy went to a press conference and explained what's going to happen if this keeps going on, Cup 13.
The controllers got 90% of one payment, 80 to 90% of one payment. They missed the second paycheck. On Thursday, they get an email pay stub that'll show what their next payment is going to be. So this Thursday, they'll get an email that shows that their pay stub is a big fat zero. Many of the controllers said, a lot of us can navigate missing one paycheck. Not everybody, but a lot of us can. None of us can manage missing 2 paychecks. So if you bring us to a week from today, Democrats, you will see mass chaos. You will see mass flight delays. You'll see mass cancellations. And you may see us close certain parts of the airspace because we just cannot manage it because we don't have the air traffic control.
Now, I got to go. I got to fly on Friday, on Sunday or Saturday, and on Tuesday. So I'm really hoping they keep the government open because there's nothing worse than a connecting flight that gets canceled. There's a lot of things worse than that, but in terms of minor inconveniences, that's pretty bad. Nancy Pelosi, meanwhile, seems to be losing it as well. She was on CNN with Alex Michelson, who's a good guy, got a new show on CNN, California guy. We'll see if it takes off. I would not have made the choice of having Nancy on as one of my first guests, cut 14.
Just a vile creature. The worst thing on the face of the earth. But anyway.
You think he's the worst thing on the face of the earth?
I do, yeah. I do.
Why is that?
Because he's the President of the United States and he does not honor the Constitution of the United States. In fact, he's turned the Supreme Court into a rogue court. He's abolished the House of Representatives. He's chilled the press. He's scared people who are in our country legally.
That's normal, right? That's very normal. Everybody thinks that's normal. She is a broken person. Chuck Schumer is a broken person. That's not normal. Let me tell you about WebRoot Total Protection. WebRoot.com/Hewitt. WebRoot.com/Hewitt. I don't think I have to tell you that the number of scam, phishing emails and text you are getting is skyrocketing. I don't think I have to tell you they're getting harder and harder to detect. I don't think I have to tell you that it's a nightmare for your parents and your grandparents who are not used to identifying and seeing. They need antivirus protection. They need anti-scam protection. They need fraud reimbursement if they are looted. They need everything that WebRoot Total Protection offers. All you have to do is go to webroot.com/Hewitt. Right now it's 60% off. Now, if you're just an individual, one person, 5 devices. But for a family, 10 identities, 10 devices covered by webroot.com/Hewitt. Total protection, and for a brief time, 60% off. Now is the time to get safe online. webroot.com/Hewitt. And get the total protection package at 60% off. That's at webroot.com/Hewitt. This skyrockets, fraud skyrockets during the Thanksgiving and Black Friday shopping period. So get smart and get Webroot Total Protection today at webroot.com/Hewitt. Byron York is the senior political writer at the Washington Examiner. He is also a Fox News contributor. I'm sure you will see him somewhere tonight. Byron, let's start out in the West on election night and then come east. Prop 50, lock?
Lock.
All right.
I think Republicans have kind of given up on that anyway, but it's a single-party state. What can you say?
Yeah. Now, does that jump start the Indiana redistricting, which is slowed down, and does it make Ohio reconsider the map that they tentatively have adopted?
Well, I mean, if you just look at Texas and then California, they kind of cancel each other out. So if you're going to get an advantage, you get it somewhere else. So, yeah, it may indeed jumpstart Indiana.
I hope so. Let's go now to the city of New York. What's your spidey sense telling you?
My spidey sense is telling me Zoran Mandami is going to win. I mean, it's just. I mean, you're going toward the falls, and you just keep going, and no, we can't do this. We can't do this. We got to go over there. We got over there. Somebody's got to stop us. Is there an anchor somewhere? And it just keeps going. And if you look at the polls, he consistently has enough support to win. So, I mean, this would be a huge, huge upset if Andrew Cuomo were to win.
Now, Curtis is not helping at all, but President Trump endorsing Andrew Cuomo had to give him some help, didn't it? Among the diehard Republicans of New York?
Mamdani, immediately embraced it as good, being good for him. I says, if you want to vote for Donald Trump, vote for Andrew Cuomo. I just don't see, given the situation that happened with the incumbent Mayor Adams, the incredible flaws of the independent Cuomo, and then the just sort of consistent, existence of Curtis Lewa. It's just, I just don't see any way. I'm sorry, I sound frustrated. I don't see any way for anybody other than Mamdani to win.
You and I are rational people, and Mamdani, I thought his office was 10 people. I learned today his office was 5 people, so he's run an office of 5 people for 6 years and a campaign, which really doesn't require running when, Act Blue is giving you $1 gazillion. It just requires spending money. I really fear for New York. It's got 300,000 people working for it.
Yeah, I do. I mean, obviously that's one issue. He's never, run anything. And then there are the things that he wants to do. And when he says he doesn't want to defund the police, that's not true. He wants to defund the police. But the thing that worries me most is that, I really don't think U.S. mayoral elections should be considered on the basis of foreign policy.
Right.
But there's no doubt that deep in his core, the thing that most motivates him is Palestine. I mean, that is the issue. He formed the group when he was in college. It's been the most important issue to him ever since. And when he thinks of things, when he thinks of police brutality in New York, what can he compare the police to? The IDF. I just don't think there's any doubt that the animating force inside him is Palestine. And I just think what a terrible thing for the mayor of New York to be motivated by that, with all the issues, crime, the economy, everything else, all the issues that the mayor needs to pay attention to.
Do you know that 1% of the people of New York pay 48% of the income tax? Do you think that 1% is going to stay there?
I think that there would have to be. Well, first of all, we know he wants to raise taxes in a significant way. Is he going to do that? I don't know. There may be some people who take him at his word and, tomorrow start leaving. I think there's some who've actually started leaving already. There may be others who wait to see if he actually does it. I don't think it'll be the drain would be that huge, but certainly some would go. Yeah.
All right, let me turn to New Jersey, which may be the brightest light of all other than the AG race in Virginia. What do you feel about New Jersey?
I agree with you there. I do think that that this is basically a dead heat right now. That when you look at New Jersey, Chitterelli and Winsome Earl Sears in Virginia. Chitterelli's just a much stronger candidate, and Mikey Sherrill is very weak. Both races are totally about Donald Trump. So I think Chitterelli has the better of the two chances to win.
Now, I think property taxes actually sort of matches the Trump factor in Jersey, and not to the benefit of the does she have a pulse, Mickey Sherrill. She's the worst candidate in America, but the biggest issue is property taxes up there. And, Democrats not going to make that better, Byron.
And, Chitterelli's saying, look, this is not a Trump issue, okay? Our property taxes, these are our issues. We need to fix them. This is not about, giving the finger to Donald Trump. Please vote for New Jersey. Please vote to fix the problems in New Jersey. And it's kind of a plaintive cry, but this one may work. I agree with you that this is the best chance for Republicans.
Now, I've already voted for Winsome Earl Sears for governor and John Reed for lieutenant governor and Jason Miyares, who coined the phrase, I heard it somewhere else, that this has become a referendum on decency. Do you think the referendum on decency message has penetrated the Democratic core and the independents?
I think this is interesting. At the height of the Jay Jones texting stuff, it looked like Jones had cratered and Miyares was definitely going to win. Now I think it's a little murkier. And I have to say, I understand that the texting stuff is horrible. But the 116 mile an hour speeding ticket is just 116 miles an hour. That usually, when you look into it, that usually gets you some jail time, maybe a week in jail, something like that, in Virginia. And then when there's a phony community service deal connected to pleading guilty, where you have the people at your political action committee claim that you've done 500 hours of community service for them, and that satisfies the punishment for driving 116 miles an hour. And this is, by the way, this is not, I'm sorry, I was in Callow Youth. It was 25 years ago. I deeply regret it. This was in 2022 that he did this. I just find it astonishing.
And I'll be very astonished if he wins, but we'll have to go through the runes after that, if that is in fact the case. Byron, enjoy election night. I know I do. I want to play for you Scott Bessent on CNBC, Secretary of the Treasury Scott Bessent, talking about the SCOTUS tariff arguments earlier today, cut number 19.
I think it's a matter of national security, and this is one of the president's signature policies, and it'd be very unusual for the Supreme Court to overrule President's signature policy. Supreme Court gave President Obama a lot of room on Obamacare, and President Trump's two signature policies have been securing the border, which has been a incredible success, and it has been the tariff policy rebalancing U.S. trade, and it's economic security. And we've had three emergencies here. First emergency has been the fentanyl crisis, and President was able to use IEEPA to bring the Chinese to the table on the precursor chemicals. Second emergency was, I think we were at a tipping point in terms of our trade deficits. We are bringing those down. The deficit with China is down 25%. We could have had a looming financial crisis. And then number three, the president, after the Chinese said that they were going to put export controls on rare earth minerals for the globe on October 8th, President was able to use his IEEPA emergency powers to threaten 100% tariffs, bring the Chinese to the table in Kuala Lumpur and Korea, and get the rare earths to flow. And if that hadn't happened, that manufacturing facilities, not only in the U.S., but around the world, would shut down. So, this is an emergency power that he has used during emergencies.
There's a very elegant argument aimed at lobbying the Supreme Court. He's not before the court. I don't believe Secretary Bessent is a lawyer, but that's a good lawyer's argument. That's why I expect, remember, tariffs are committed to the Congress by the Constitution. The Congress can and has delegated in international economic emergencies tariff powers to the president. The question is, do all of the tariffs fit within the IEPA, the International Economic Emergency Powers Act? And did they delegate too much if they delegated that away? I don't know. We're going to find out. We're going to find out, and we're going to find out soon. What Secretary Bessent did there that was very artful, though, is he reminded everyone that the Obamacare decision was a 5-4 decision that deferred greatly to the president, a very practical decision. I've always thought the Chief Justice's opinion in that was the correct one for the reason stated. Supermajorities for a new president wanted the signature landmark legislation. Are you going to throw it out? There's a constitutional principle of constitutional interpretation, which you say the statute if it's at all possible. IEPA is a little bit different, but if they want to resurrect the non-delegation doctrine, that's a win for conservatives too. So I expect a very good punt, a very long punt, one that extends the issue out past the time President Trump is president and leaves the tariffs in place for an intensive fact-finding court proceeding that will take some time. But we'll see. Election night, I hope if you are in Virginia or New Jersey, you stop by your polling place on your drive home. We really need the participation. Beginning this hour with West Virginia Senator Shelley Moore Capito. She is the chair of the Senate Environmental Committee and a welcome guest on the Hugh Hewitt Show. Senator, good to see you again. How are you?
Thanks, Hugh. Doing great. Thank you for having me on.
Well, I want to talk first about the Schumer shutdown. It went from being a slogan to being a brand. Now it's tattooed on the Democrats. I don't know they're ever going to live this down like Marley's ghost carrying the lockboxes around behind him. What do you think? Are they going to get off of this, get stuck on stupid and get unstuck?
I don't know. You would think at least 5 of them would have the common sense to move over, especially in light of the services that you see, the air traffic control, the SNAP benefits, possible other things that are really hurting people. It's not just a game, and this is really going right to the heart. As you know, my state of West Virginia, there are a lot of people who are on not just WIC but on the SNAP program, and I honestly, it just astounds me that they can still sit there as they did today and vote no.
No, I had Governor Morrissey.
No. Yeah.
I had Governor Morrissey on yesterday. He said 270,000 people get SNAP in West Virginia.
Right.
He's calling on private food banks. That's a crisis, really.
It's a crisis. And, I think a lot of people think of it. Some people will slough it off and go, oh, these people don't need all these benefits. I'm sorry. If you're a young mother, maybe a single mother working a lower minimum wage job, you have 2 kids. If you think you can't feed your children, that's a horrifying thought. And that's what we're facing. And that's what she's facing. And, it's just like, get on with it, Schumer, and release your people. Here's the only thing I can say optimistic in the last 2 hours is they had a very long lunch. Normally, when you have a long lunch, that means there's disagreement as to what way to go. But I'm an optimist, but I'm not optimistic about this.
Well, I got to think that Senator Ossoff is one of the more endangered incumbents in the United States Senate, and people in Georgia aren't going to get their SNAP benefits. And if Atlanta's giant airport starts to suffer delays, the air traffic controllers have made it pretty clear that they're fed up and they can't miss a second paycheck.
Well, it's all about, first of all, it was, we're going to wait till we get the insurance premiums. Well, that was Saturday. Now we're going to wait until election. So, okay, that's going to come and go. After tomorrow, that's going to be gone. We're looking at this weekend with Veterans Day being a federal holiday. A lot of people are taking the weekend, taking a 4-day weekend. Those airports are going to be packed, and people are going to be very dissatisfied. I heard somebody had 5-hour TSA lines the other day. I can't believe they're not feeling the heat, because I certainly am. People are tired of it. Nobody wins here. Nobody wins.
Longest shutdown in history. I'm just curious from the perspective of chair of the Senate Environmental Committee. EPA's not open, and there are a bunch of other, like ACOE, Army Corps of Engineers, other agencies with of which you have oversight. Are there any that concern you? Any operations that have been shut down that concern you greatly?
Well, here's what concerns me is we want to build. We want to issue permits. We want to move forward with getting materials. We want awards that have been awarded to move forward. A lot of them are just hung up because everybody's furloughed. They can't process the paperwork, which we know takes an enormous amount of time anyway. And so that's what I'm worried about. I'm worried it's going to disrupt this cycle of building, of moving our permits further down the line. And it just, we're missing a season here. I mean, it's going to be winter soon, and you can't build as well in the winter in certain areas of the country. So it's very disruptive, I think, and discouraging.
All right, let me turn to the filibuster, Senator Capito. I am a huge defender of it. I know it's not in the Constitution, but it is a minority right that has protected the court, especially the Supreme Court, from overzealousness in the expansion and what I would think would be the destruction of the rule of law. President Trump is just frustrated. He's a businessman. He doesn't get the filibuster serves a longer-term purpose. What do you think?
Well, I signed that letter in 2017 that said I would not vote to remove the filibuster. I'm not one of those people that signs a letter and pledges to do something and then turns around 7 years later or 8 years later and rejects that initial, like the Democrats did, I would say, in 2023. I do believe, as you do, that it preserves the minority rights. It pushes us to negotiation. It creates better policies. It prevents things that, and a lot of times in Washington, it's not what you can get through, it's what you can prevent from getting through. And the filibuster really aids with that. I understand the president's frustration. We're all frustrated. But in my view, we don't have the votes for it anyway. So I don't want to see us have created an environment with the president and our leadership and other members in our Senate caucus where we're fighting with one another. We're a team, and we should be moving forward as effectively as we can. And that is to push the Democrats and the Schumer shutdown to reopen the government. And the president knows that the Democrats are going to try to obstruct him every single way that they possibly can.
Now, it's long been said that there are workhorses and show horses in the Senate. You're one of the workhorses. I am curious what you think of Operation Arctic Frost. I doubt you were targeted because you are a workhorse, but your colleagues were. How shocked are you?
Very shocked. And of course, my colleagues who were the ones actually targeted, and I'm not sure we really know to what extent. Was it, were they looking at papers? Were they looking at just phone, metadata? Were they looking at things more detailed? I don't think we have the full story here. And I would support an investigation into this, absolutely. And I think that those that were targeted are very, feel violated in a way because of the separation of powers and their, not being informed as to what was going on. Why has it taken 3 years for this to come out? That's a good question. I would say hat tip to Chairman Grassley for uncovering this through a whistleblower. I believe, he's a big proponent of whistleblowers, and in this case, I think well placed. But I think it just shows you the suspicion and also the Trump derangement syndrome that exists in the Democrat Party all the way through the highest reaches of the Department of Justice, the IRS, we know, and others.
And the FBI, which brings me to something I discussed with Governor Morrisey yesterday. The FBI's old building's got to come down. I think GSA came up with a plan to move the bureau into the Reagan building, which is the craziest thing I've heard. It's not designed. It's not safe. It's not where the bureau should be. I suggest they need a campus. Why not put it in West Virginia, Senator? Give them their own FBI campus. A lot of people drive in from West Virginia every day.
They do, and we would certainly welcome the FBI. But I think you and I have a difference of opinion here. The GSA just came back with a prospectus for the Reagan building to put the FBI in there. There are insurances built in that the safetiness is there, but also we're not going to spend $5 billion to go to Greenbelt, Maryland. We have the money already appropriated to about $1.5 billion, and so we approved that through our committee on a party line vote just last week. So we'll see what happens in the House. The House has to move on that. But honestly, I think it's a solid plan. I prefer having the FBI in closer in town for a variety of reasons. I'm not saying I wouldn't take everybody in West Virginia and we would welcome them with open arms, but I do think the plan that they've put forward for the FBI in the Reagan building, I think works, and I think it would work well. So I guess
okay,
we don't
I'll have
agree.
to get you offline. We're going to have to disagree because of the counterintelligence work I did years ago for justice. I just don't think it's smart to have the Bureau be a target in this age of electronic eavesdropping in the middle. I think they need a campus like Langley or like Meade, and there's no land like that. I don't want it to go to Maryland, by the way. I think that's crazy, but I think West Virginia would be fine. Let me close by asking you about scheduling on the shutdown votes. Senator Thune has been, the leader's been very, very patient, doing one a day. Are we going to keep doing one a day, or are we going to go to two a day? Because this ought to embarrass every one of your Democratic colleagues.
You would think so, but it's been 14 times. I mean, I voted for to keep the government open 13 times under President Biden because I think a government shutdown is such a disservice to anybody. We're going to keep plowing the ground here and hopefully have a vote. I think there's a little blue sky for the end of the week. Let's keep our fingers crossed that somebody will come to their senses. 5 people will come to their senses, and we can reopen the government.
I hope you're right, Senator, because I'm flying Friday, Sunday, and Tuesday, so I really hope you get it done. Have a great weekend, Senator, and a great election night. It's always great to talk to you and catch up, and we'll go offline about the Bureau downtown. It's such a waste of the Reagan building, too. Thank you, Senator Shelley Moore Capito. Don't go anywhere, America. I'm going to come back-to-back senators. Senator Joni Ernst of Iowa joins me next. Don't go anywhere. Stay tuned here at Senate Central during the shutdown, where the government is stalled by the Democrats, the longest it has ever been in history. The Schumer shutdown has gone into the books. It went from being a slogan to a brand, and now it's the tattoo. Joined now by Senator Joni Ernst of Iowa. Hello, Senator. Always good to see you. How are you?
I'm well. Thank you, Hugh. It's great to be with you.
I just talked to your colleague, Shelley Moore Capito, about the shutdown, and I talked about the Environmental Committee and the SNAP program. I'm curious, you chair small business. It's not going to get a lot of headlines, but a lot of small businesses have probably been screwed over by this shutdown. Am I right?
Yes, they sure have. And think about all of the small businesses across the United States that have those wonderful contracting opportunities with the federal government, different services or products that they provide. They're not able to provide those right now. So it really does put a strain on those small businesses. And we hope that it ends soon. I'm sure that Senator Capito brought that up, that maybe there's some hope in sight, but we really need to get the government reopen. Let's stop this Schumer shutdown. It's got to end.
There are whispers of reasonableness among a handful of Democrats. Have any of them conveyed that to you?
Absolutely. And there's a number of those Democrats that will be retiring after this next year in session. And they just want to open back up. They understand that there are families and businesses being hurt by the government shutdown, primarily on the shoulders of Senator Schumer. So they would like to see a way out. And I think it's important that we provide them different opportunities to express themselves. No guarantees in outcome, but certainly we want to reopen the government. And those of us that are reasonable, we're willing to work with them, but let's open the government first.
Senator Ernst, one of the things I saw is that the CR might pass along with some of the appropriations bill that are coming through Senator Collins's committee and another CR attached to it. Is that roughly what the outline is?
Yes, and that's what we're hearing as well. And we've had many discussions about this over the course of this last weekend and just into this week. But Senator Collins and a number of those that serve on the Appropriations Committee have worked very hard to get all of the appropriations bills passed out of committee. Several of those have been taken up on the floor of the Senate already. So if we can package some of those appropriations bills with a clean continuing resolution, perhaps with a later date, whether it's a December or January deadline, then I think we would get some of that funding out of the way. If we run into another government shutdown, at least it wouldn't be a 100% government shutdown. So I think we have a way to move forward. And I just want to say, kudos to Senator Collins for really sticking at this and trying to do the right thing by getting the Senate back to regular order.
Is one of the appropriations bills that might move for defense, because I know you're a big proponent of the troops. I also know you care about the civilian employees at the Pentagon who haven't been paid, though the troops have been paid. Is one of those appropriations bills defense?
It is. It's under consideration. Not probably the most likely in the first package, but we are hoping that if we can move a few of the smaller bills, then we can lead up to some bigger items, which would be the DoD budget, which would encompass all of the spending surrounding the Department of Defense or Department of War, including that military pay, the civilian pay, and certainly all of the different contracting opportunities that go along with our national security.
Now, Senator, I'm taking the opportunity, every senator who comes across the screen, to ask them about Operation Arctic Frost. I doubt very much you were in the crosshairs because you are a workhorse and you're not one of the Jack Smith targets or the FBI's targets, but what do you make of that? I'm so shocked. I'm still shocked 2 weeks later.
Hugh, it's shameful, absolutely shameful. And it's almost a little bit of a joke, not completely a joke, but in the Senate cloakroom, we've had discussions about this, in between votes. And those that were targeted, even the telecommunications companies that allowed that information to flow back to Jack Smith without questioning the authority of those subpoenas, the orders, they can be sued. And there has been discussion about this, how some of our members could actually get quite rich by suing some of these companies for, pushing back. And again, it's a little bit of a joke, but when you say I wasn't included in that, I'm like, dang, why wasn't I included?
Well, I would like to see a select committee. I would like you to gather up. You got a lot of great lawyers. And I'd put them all on there, and I'd put Jack Smith and everybody else on his team in front of that committee for hours and hours and hours, which brings me to the FBI. Senator Capito and I disagree about this. The FBI building is going to be thrown out. They're going to move across the street to the Reagan building, which I think is the dumbest thing I've heard in 40 years of in and out of D.C., because the Reagan building is not built for SCIFs or security. Move them somewhere outside of the Beltway. Send them to Iowa. Send them to West Virginia. But the FBI is broken.
We absolutely would accept them in Iowa. So I like that suggestion. Yeah. But I'm all about analysis, Hugh, and I think that this is really important. I've spent a lot of time scrutinizing the vacant buildings that we have within our federal government real estate portfolio. We have 7,700 empty federal buildings across the United States, 7,700. And we continue to pay $81 million on maintenance activities for these vacant buildings. There's deferred maintenance to the tune of, it was, billions of dollars, about $5 billion, $6 billion of deferred maintenance on those buildings. And within 5 years, it'll be about $20 billion of deferred maintenance. So I'm trying to find a way to get rid of all of these vacant buildings. But you can't tell me that we don't have a good choice of buildings out there to locate the FBI. If it can't be where it is now, as you suggest, let's make sure that we're finding an appropriate place for the FBI, being cognizant of our taxpayer dollars and the fact that we are $38 trillion in debt, and we continue to accumulate debt with all of these other vacant buildings. So anyway, I am
how many vacant buildings?
7,700. 77, and that's across the United States.
That's extraordinary.
Yes. This is not a new problem. This is not a COVID problem. This is a problem that we as a federal government have had for years. Now, it was exacerbated, of course, during COVID with telework, but certainly we have a bloated bureaucracy. We acquire real estate as a federal government, but we never divest. We never get rid of it. So I have an act that's
hire an auctioneer. You know auctioneers in Iowa, don't you? They could move those things.
Actually.
Yeah.
I know a lot personally. So yes, so I think we could get rid of so much of this real estate, and there are businesses that would benefit. Of course, the local taxpayers would benefit because we could return those properties back to the local property rolls. Tax rolls. So, let's be smart about this. Let's go ahead. Let's divest. Let's sell off this real estate. There are 6 properties I've identified here in Washington, D.C. proper. Just by selling those 6 buildings, we could raise $400 million.
Let's do it, and let's find the FBI a better home than the beautiful Reagan building. Senator Ernst, always a pleasure to talk to you. Good luck in getting the shutdown solved this week. I appreciate your time tonight. If you were listening to the program yesterday, you heard Jan Gennara, great sponsor of the show, a dear friend of mine, been a friend of mine for almost 20 years. He runs the Wild Adventure, TWA.US, different subject, different time, but he wrote this book, Turning Small Talk into Big Talk. And one of the keys to turning small talk into big talk, which you should get before Thanksgiving dinner. By the way, you can get it at jansbooks.com, or you can get it at Amazon. Turning small talk into big talk. One of the keys is listening for what is interesting and going there. That just happened. So I've been doing this a long time, but I do try not to become oblivious to the guest. I've got a set of questions I want to get through. Senator Ernst drops out the fact that there are 7,700 empty buildings owned by the federal government. Now, I'm sure some of them are cowshed in the Dakotas somewhere, but 7,700 empty buildings. Add that to the list of questions in turning small talk into big talk. How many people, it's a pretty neutral question, not political. Who wants to take a guess at how many empty buildings the federal government owns? You can go around the table. And if you're the only one listening to the program, you'll be the only one to know. Everyone, give them an over-under. Play Price is Right. Okay, if you go over, you lose. How many buildings? Now, someone's going to say 100,000 buildings because they don't have any sense of scale. But what you ought to do is 50 states, well, there's probably 10 in every state, right? So that's 500 right there. And the next question will be, maybe some states have 20, so there's 1,000. Maybe even some states have 30 empty federal buildings. Maybe there are 1,500 empty federal buildings. But 7,700. So if you get the book, Turning Small Talk into Big Talk, jansbooks.com, you'll learn very quickly in an elegant fashion, really fun read, how to have a conversation with people and how to listen to when they drop something that you can poke at a little bit and learn something from and draw other people in. And what do you think they are? Now, if I'd had longer time with Senator Ernst, I would have said, do any of them fit the FBI? The FBI needs a headquarters. Needs a headquarters within driving distance of D.C. Doesn't have to be in the Beltway. Certainly should not go in the Reagan building. Certainly should not go in the Reagan building. It's the most beautiful, the newest building on Pennsylvania Avenue. I don't know if President Trump knows about this, but it should not go in the Reagan building because that immediately closes the Reagan building off to the public. It was intended to be open and welcoming, and there's a food court, and it's a beautiful space, and then it becomes a target. And it's not Fortress DOJ. Fortress DOJ looks like the Department of Justice. It's ominous, and getting into it's not easy. Reagan building, you stroll on in. I don't know what they're going to rewire it to, but it's got to become a giant skiff. And it makes it really easy on the Chi-Coms and the Iranians and the Ruskies to eavesdrop on it. They bring one of those briefcase deals and just put it outside, pick up the cell phone data of everyone coming in and out of the building. If you put it on a campus somewhere like Langley for the agency or Fort Meade like the NSA, the bad guys can't get close to it, but you put it on Pennsylvania Avenue, they just drive by with the latest, snatch up the electronic signal. I really can't believe they're doing that. There are 7,700 other choices. jansbooks.com. And since I'm doing sponsors, let me remind you about Conservatives for Lower Healthcare Costs.com. We have been shut down for 35 days, allegedly because of the cost of insurance. But what Americans are really upset about is the cost of health care when they're paying out of pocket. You know why that is? Because health care depends on Big Pharma, and Big Pharma wants more handouts. Go to pharmawindfall.com to join the team that is making the case for no more handouts to Big Pharma. Big Pharma's got a legion of lobbyists. They're very good. They're the best that money can buy because Big Pharma makes big bucks. And they've had a great quarter. Great quarter. There's no need for another pharma windfall. They don't need more subsidies. They do need more competition. President Trump's putting the thumb on them. We do not need manipulation of patents beyond the 7 years that they need to make back their R&D. So head over to pharmawindfall.com. Join the team at Conservatives for Lower Healthcare Costs. I approve everyone who comes onto the program. I have to agree with their ideology. I've been mad at Big Pharma since Obamacare. They brought us Obamacare. They caved in exchange for money. I mean, they're a great asset to America. They came up with the COVID vaccine and Operation Warp Speed at ridiculous. That was one of the domestic policy triumphs of the Trump years to deal with COVID and saved millions of lives around the world. So they do good work, and they should get paid. They don't need a windfall. That's why we called it pharmawindfall.com. Join Conservatives for Lower Healthcare Costs. Come right back. Lilacs is next. I want to check in on the Minneapolis mayor's race as well. That music means Lilacs is in the house, as in James Lilacs, as in jameslilacs.substack.com, humorist extraordinaire and writer of great books. James, I've got a number of questions for you, but first let's focus on Mayor Frey and Mr. Fattah, because they're getting lost in Prop 50 in New York City and New Jersey and Virginia. How goes the mayoral's race in Minneapolis, hometown for James?
I can only tell you what I saw on the ground, Hugh. We went to vote this day at noon, and I'm old. So when I walk into the polling place, I'm instinctively grabbing for my wallet under the presumption I'm going to pull out a little laminated piece of plastic and show it to them. And they'll say, oh, good, we wanted to see that. But no, you walk in, you tell them the first three letters of your last name, and then tickety-tick, and is this you? Well, why, yes, it is. And you sign your name, and you go. Now, I know that when I don't tell American Express that I'm going to England and I show up and I use my card, there's this vast algorithm that's been going on that lets them know it's not fraud. How this 19-year-old kid with an iPad here knows that I am actually myself, I don't know. But presumably it's all on the up and up, and it's as safe and secure as an election can ever be. So I sat there and did the ranked choice thing, which, again, I hate. I think you should have a choice and stand behind it. And then cheerfully declined to vote in one election because one of the people in it had said something cruel and stupid about my writing. So I left him to twist. And then walked the dog home on a beautiful day through woods that will continue to grow and prosper no matter who becomes the mayor of this great city. Now, I still am going to hold to saying that the mayor current is going to be the mayor future. But what do I know? New York is what I'm a little bit more worried about.
When there are two candidates, how does ranked choice voting work? Do you vote none of the above for second place?
We'll need you to leave it blank if you want. But no, there are 15 candidates. I mean, there's everybody.
Oh,
his
good.
Cousin and his brother and his uncle. Yeah, there's a whole crowded field of people from the Concerned Unicorn Party to the the amalgamated elephant conservationist wing. I think there was one that was called this, and then there's one that was just like, why not Bobby or something like that. But yes, lots of chatter.
Do you have to rank all 15, or you just do 3 or 4 or 10?
No, you can do 3. You can do 3. After that, I think it's a little much.
Mr. Fattah did not get one of your 3 bullets?
He did not.
Okay, just checking. Now, I have a second question for you.
What do you think?
You are no longer writing 2 columns a week, so there's some time on your hand. I'm wondering if the FBI reached out and asked you to name operations. I've been talking about Operation Arctic Frost. And I'm letting slip, because it's so egregious, that the name is also terrible. Do you think the name is terrible?
I don't know. I have 2 minds of these. I mean, if you were to say that you wanted to have a super secret little thing that you were going to go after a whole bunch of people you didn't like and cause them distress, and you called it Operation Scrotum Tighter, that might be something that pops up later and indicates that there was malice aforethought. Arctic frost is not necessarily something I would be worried about. It would be a drink that I would choose to quaff in June in the hot weather. It would be sort of a zingy little, addition to a morning breakfast. But Arctic frost, I don't know. I mean, maybe they should get the guys who did Enduring Freedom and the rest of those things and come over and help them. But aren't these?
That's what I mean.
Yeah. But again,
or if you want to avoid.
I'm less concerned with the nomenclature than I am with the actual existence of the thing, to tell you the truth.
Well, the existence of it troubles me greatly because there are 400 people who were in some state of surveillance by the FBI. That does not bother you?
No, greatly so. And here's the thing. We know what's coming out about this is appalling. It indicates a degree of obsessiveness and paranoia and scrutiny and all those other things we characterize with authoritarian governments that are looking over their shoulder and scared of the other side. All of the things that supposedly the Republicans are being accused of being in their heart of hearts and the pith of their marrow is what they did. And we all know that there's going to be hearings, and there will be pounding of the table, and there will be witnesses who clam up, and there will be all the things that we have come to associate with nothing ever happening about any of it. It's like the Comey situation. Unless you actually see people who are paying a price down the road, you just regard all of it as kabuki theater. Alas and alack.
I want to hear people, if they lie, I want them prosecuted. Okay, I want to close out here by asking you about whether or not you think the shutdown will end.
Well, it has to do. I don't know. I haven't the faintest idea. It would be great if it did, but if it didn't, then we've got another week of messaging. And
okay. Then my second question is an even better question. You weren't listening to Senator Johnny Ernst earlier in the program, were you?
Alas, alack, no.
Good. Because then you'd know the answer. James Lilacs. I would like you to guess how many empty buildings the federal government owns. Empty buildings.
Well, let's take that as a percentage. If they own 10,000, I'd say that 6,500 are empty. If they owned 100,000, I'd say 650,000 of them are empty. And that's after COVID, and that's after the return to the office. I don't know. You tell me. What's the percentage? What's the number? I'm sure it's
that's no
falling.
Fun. I didn't get a percentage. It's 7,700 buildings are empty.
Great.
And have been empty for a while.
I presume they're paying taxes. I presume they're paying utilities. I presume that there's a janitor who's sitting there looking at his iPhone all day, scrolling up and down with absolutely nothing to do, and that there should be a wonderful heated room ready for occupancy with no purpose whatsoever is somehow indicative and illustrative of the wonderful government that we are currently blessed to enjoy.
And now, last part, the FBI has to move. They're tearing down the ugliest building in Washington, the J. Edgar Hoover building. And they're going to move it across the street to the Reagan building, which is the most beautiful building on Pennsylvania Avenue. What do you make of that choice?
I think it's good. It's not is that the final resting place for the FBI? If so,
that's the final resting place.
Great. Then it's taking advantage of the empty space and putting it into something that is more classically aligned with the classic DC architecture. On the other hand, I would like to see the old FBI building turned into Lubyanka or something like that. Just leave it there as a huge, hideous, concrete-stained monster reminder of what they did to our cities and what they did to D.C. over and over and over again, and say, do you want the minds that thought this was beautiful to be in charge of any aspect of your life whatsoever? No, keep it there, let it fall apart, let it be stained with rain like the cover of a Who album. Get it there, enshrine it for all time, and say this is what we must never go back to. Those who do not, if we forget the past, are doomed to build it again on Pennsylvania Avenue.
I want it torn down, but I don't want the bureau in the Reagan building. Lilacs, we'll talk more about that later. Go to jameslilacs.substack.com. Subscribe and be amused. You need it in your life. jameslilacs.substack.com. Tune in tonight, Jesse Waters. I'll be on Jesse's program before election coverage starts with Brett and Martha McCollum. And remember, I'm in the Relief Factor studio. I've taken it twice today on the air, if you've been watching on the Salem News Channel, because my back is whacked. But that's okay. It will get better because of Relief Factor. It really always does help. And especially when you have a tricky back and you've done something stupid, like picking up tree trunk Teddy 25 times, hurling him over your shoulder like a sack of potatoes 3-year-olds should not be handled that way, but I keep forgetting I am not 35 anymore, and that is a problem. But Relief Factor will kick in, and it will help me get over that. And you can try it for yourself at 1-800, the number 4 and the word relief, 1-800-4-RELIEF, $19.95 for a 3-week starter pack, 3 a day for the first week, 2 a day for the second week, and then you're on the 1-a-day program unless something happens like has happened to me, and then you might want to up the dosages a little bit and get better faster. Or you can get the same starter pack for $19.95, less than $1 a day, at their website, relieffactor.com. I want to play for you Douglas Murray on Talk TV UK to close the show today, cut number 18.
Well, that's one of the things, Julia, that I take away from this. This is why I say I don't recognize our country anymore. I really don't. I don't know why we have given in to Islamists and terrorists. I don't know why we've done it. Why is it that Saturday after Saturday, people parade through the streets of London calling for jihad, praising Hamas, praising terrorists, and clambering over and defiling our sacred war monuments? Why do they get to do that every Saturday, but I can't speak in a theatre on Shaftesbury Avenue to a packed theatre, mainly of Jews? Why is it that if you call for violence against Jews day after day on the streets of London, that's A-OK with the Metropolitan Police? But if Jews want to congregate in central London, apparently it's not OK, and we'll have to retreat to another venue. I'm not a victim here, and I'm not claiming any victimhood. I don't believe in that. I don't care. I'm not going to shut up. I'll continue speaking. This is my country. London is my city, and I expect to be able to do what I want in my city. But why is it that we have Hamas supporters and all these others who defile our monuments, defile our country, hate our countries, literally spit on our country week after week, but you're not allowed to show solidarity with the Jews or with Israel? It's a despicable situation, and it's come about because of a generational cowardice by politicians of all parties and by the Metropolitan Police and others. I think it's appalling, because I know one thing for sure, Julia. The people who hate the Israelis, the people who hate the Jews, the people who we're watching at the moment marching through central London, they hate Britain as much as they hate Israel. It's just that Britain is first. We're all going to be next. So I'd say stand up in whichever way you can. And if you're an usher in a theatre, well, you know, do your darn job. It's what you're employed for. But the idea...
Bravo, Douglas, and bravo to everyone who stands up tonight by stopping and voting, no matter how long the line is in Virginia, New Jersey, New York City, Minneapolis, or California. I'll talk to you tomorrow about the results on the next Hugh Hewitt Show.